Controversy, uproar, and devastation befall the small, quaint community known as Maybrook, Pennsylvania. Because at one quiet night at 2:17 a.m., without any rhyme or reason, all 17 children of Miss Gandy's classroom, except for one lonely child named Alex, got out of bed, walked downstairs, opened the front door, and walked into the darkness, and they never came back. Many of the parents, including Archer Graff, who is the father of a missing child, speculated that maybe Justine Gandy herself is the culprit. Maybe she's behind all of this. Well, is she involved with the children's disappearance? Or is someone or something pulling the strings behind the scenes? That is the premise of Weapons. What happens next? I'm not going to tell you. That is something that you're going to have to see for yourself, because anything that I could be talking about moving forward could be possibly crossing into the dreaded spoiler territory. To put it this way, Zack Cregger's bone-chilling psychological horror epic Weapons is like an exceptionally well-written internet creepypasta or no-sleep story come to life. A spine-tingling tale that oozes with remarkable originality. The kind that we haven't seen in ages throughout the vast library of modern-day horror movies. And this is coming from somebody who wasn't all too impressed with Zack Cregger's previous horror installment, Barbarian, nor am I all too big of a fan of horror movies in general. First and foremost, let's discuss the story. Rather than go for a more linear approach, the director decides to go for a narrative direction quite similar to that of Pulp Fiction, Magnolia, in which you have separate interconnected storylines / characters that not only advance the plot forward through a different person's perspective, but it also dives right into the character's psyche, their flaws, and the harrowing dramatic circumstances that they'll eventually come across. It even does a good job at showcasing a community tearing each other apart and pointing the finger at who is to blame, while grieving, panicking, and trying to find solutions. And given the storyline, it serves as solid symbolism indicative of real-world tragedies of parents losing their loved ones to such an event. Whether it be weaponizing an item against a large establishment, weaponizing a character's history against them, or the community being weaponized against what we see as our enemies. Hence the movie's title. Some of our main characters that undergo such turmoil are as follows. Justine Gandy, an elementary school teacher facing public scrutiny over something that she may not be even responsible for, while undergoing significant problems herself, such as depression, shame, and alcoholism. Archer, a grief-stricken father who's struggling through so much guilt, who takes it upon himself to find his missing son after dealing with the police's unproductive progress with the mystery at hand. And the lonely survivor of the class, Alex, who is dealing with, shall we say, wicked abuse in his household. In all 6 chapters, each of them are expounded 3-dimensional characters that have such a serious contribution to the script rather than act like a contrived plot device. Lest we forget the impactful performances of Julia Gardner, Josh Brolin, Alden Ehrenreich, Carrie Christopher, and Benedict Wong. One of the most impressive qualities about this movie in particular is that it intentionally doesn't tie up all loose ends. Unlike several modern-day horror movies where right at the end of the second act of the film, where it has to virtually explain everything to the audience through a dump truck supply of exposition, giving away all the answers, essentially killing the mysterious atmosphere and storyline of your script, when you finish watching this movie, there are still surreal, ambiguous moments and questions that still linger in your mind, but not the kind of questions that you ask yourself when trying to point out plot holes or missing gaps within the story. They're the kind that asks the audience to infer as to what kind of intentions or motivations that a specific character has and why are they doing it, what happens in the aftermath, or what certain imagery could mean, inviting interesting conversations and keeping this world and setting alive in your mind. Weapons doesn't just deliver on the dramatic and narrative side, it also excels at being just a straight up hair-raising horror movie. In the case of modern day horror movies, Trying to scare somebody could be the easiest thing in the world, because all you have to do is put in a predictably cheap jump scare with a loud noise after 3 seconds of silence, and that's all that it would pretty much take to make an audience startled. Sure, there are jump scares and weapons, but Zack Cregger is so smart with how he utilizes them. At times, they're incredibly unpredictable and inspired. You may presume that it could occur in one instance, but it surprises you in the next. And even when there are specific scenes when you know that a jump scare is gonna happen, how it is paced and executed in the script will scare the heck out of you anyway, and the imagery that comes will burn into your brain and will stay that way while you are sleeping. The scariest moments in the film, however, involve moments where you have no earthly idea as to what is going to happen. I mean, giving up one example would do an immense disservice to how frightening and suspenseful Weapons is. Yet, much like his prior film Barbarian, Cregger doesn't shy away from inserting dark comedy into such a creepy and dire psychological thriller without being tone deaf. Particularly in the chapters of both Paul, who is a police officer and Justine's ex, and a homeless drug addict named James. While having commendable characterizations on their own, the chemistry and the banter that the two have are so hilarious that it makes you wish that there was more time of them on screen. The cinematography in Weapons is also majestically horrific. It's very rare that I see a modern horror movie that isn't directed by Robert Eggers to have cinematography and shot composition as gorgeous and evil looking as this. The wide shots of the possessed children running across the neighborhood is an eerie sight to behold, and how the close-ups are framed, especially during the jump scares, will make you stand mystified while you're peeing in your pants. Plenty of it is also complemented by the film's smooth, haunting score by the Halliday brothers and Zack Cregger himself, all through the use of woodwinds, synths, and atmospherics. The soundtrack is also implemented perfectly with songs like George Harrison's Beware the Dark, matching with the mood and the cinematography of one of the opening scenes of the film. And yes, there are people that talk about this particular instance in the movie, so why don't I have my share of the cinematic pizza by discussing the movie's ending. Many consider this movie's ending jarring and over the top, considering how it relies on such a heavily sadistic and sinister tone, or even shocking for the sake of being shocking. Honestly, the movie's ending is not only laugh out loud hysterical in a positive way, but it is so incredibly satisfying and poetic because of how everything plays out after the incredibly surprising reveal. Once the pieces fall into place, the execution makes the payoff of the evil force behind it all getting its comeuppance so fulfilling. If there's anything that I could consider criticisms of this movie, it would be two things, and trust me, they're very slim. During the beginning, I think the film could have been better off without just a few sentences of needless and redundant exposition. And I felt like the pacing dragged a little bit during Alex's chapter. That's it. That is all. After liking but slightly being disappointed by 28 years later, Zack Cregger's sophomoric magnum opus Weapons is one hell of a pick-me-up. So far, this is not only one of the best horror movies of the year, but it's also a worthy contender of being one of the best movies of 2025. It's a tale that makes your hair stand up every time you think about it. It might be remembered as an all-time great, with enriching, thrilling, and dramatic storytelling, spooky atmospherics, and nightmarish terror. This one isn't to be missed, folks. Don't take the easy way out and wait for it on streaming. This deserves a full-price ticket and your butt in a seat, and it is worth every single penny. One last thing I will give this movie before I go. It made me never look at old red-haired women the same way again. If you know, you know. My name is Luke Nukem, and you, my friends, have been blown away